we both were upset with God and we were upset with each other, and we weren't receiving comfort from the Lord or each other. So we were just kind of both broken. And that was really, really hard. And I think what it did was open up the door for it to just be hard for a little bit.
Hey there, welcome back to the LO Mama podcast. I'm Korie and I'm here with Beth, and we again are just so honored that you would spend this time with us. We started this podcast because we wanted to just encourage you as moms, as women, as wives, and today we're going to talk a little bit about marriage. So as wives, and just all the things that we are as women. It's a lot. It can be a lot, right?
It is a lot. I mean, right now, before we went live, we were literally talking about doing our roots and like all the maintenance issues. So if you want us to talk about that, we can do that too.
Yes.
But we were going to go a little bit deeper today and talk about the pits and the peaks of marriage.
Yeah, someone put that in the thing and said, talk about pits and peaks. And I thought that was a good way to put it because there are definitely pits and peaks in marriage.
Well, it's for better or worse, right? So there's a hint in the vows. Yeah.
Yes, for better or worse, richer or poor, sicker or health, all the things that it's there. It's a part. It's a part of marriage and a part of life. So, all right, before we get started talking about that, though, one of my favorite topics, I ask this at every dinner conversation of someone that I know. So I already know this, but I want you to tell just kind of our listeners, how did you and Matt meet? Because I think it's such a fun to just hear people's like early days and hear their love story.
Yeah, so I met Matt when I was 19. So this was like back in 1994, 95. Mm-hmm. And I was with Youth for Christ doing like a gap year, going around England and Europe doing schools work, which I was loving. And one of the rules was that you were not allowed to be in a relationship when you were on this gap year. So, of course,
Beth, and you're a rule follower. So what?
Yes. Apart from in card games, as you know, when I accidentally cheated on purpose to win. But there we are. So, but then suddenly everyone becomes instantly attractive because you're not allowed to be in a relationship. Yes. But I was really all about following the rules. And we were going to go to this church, like the first church we were going to visit and spend time with and do ministry with was this church in England called St. Andrews. And the girls on the team were going crazy about this guy, this worship leader called Redman. Had never heard of him. But when they were talking and kind of playing his tapes, because that's what we did back then, I realized, I've heard some of these songs and all the rest of it, but didn't know anything about what he looked like. So I get out of the van, we arrive at the church, and there is this guy standing under the cross.
Oh, wow.
Spiritual. Yeah. And he's talking to another guy. And I just didn't know who it was, didn't even really know where we were in the world. But I felt something inside of me be like, you're going to marry this man and you're going to marry him in this church.
Wow.
And so I did something very countercultural. I didn't tell a single person. And I didn't know even, like I say, who this person was. And then I found out as the day went on that this was this guy that everyone was crushing on and talking about. So I definitely went into this mode of like, I can't even be friendly. We're not allowed relationships. Mm-hmm. I can't like him. I had this feeling I'm going to marry this guy. Like, this is a lot.
Wow. And how old was he at the time?
I was 19. He was 20, like 21, 20, something like that. Mm-hmm. So the host family that I was staying with, she was the worship pastor who had taken over from Matt. He had just planted this youth church called Soul Survivor. And so she kept inviting him round. And so I would be completely quiet. And so then this family ended up adopting me, okay? Wow. So my mum moved away. I was not able to move with her. And so I didn't have anywhere to go on my breaks. And this family literally said, we are now your family. Christmas, birthdays, whenever you come here, this is your room. And so this is your home. And so I ended up on my breaks coming back and spending time with this family. And I would just naturally see Matt. And so he would begin to invite me to sing with him, but I was barely even friendly to him because I'd had such an overwhelming, honestly, and I had this inner conviction that if someone really likes you, then it's really good not to chase them and just to build a friendship. And so I was in his band, I was super professional, we got to know each other that way. But one day our boss, who was kind of running the band, sat us down and he said, I really am worried that you two hate each other.
Oh, no.
And so, because I think we've
trying
both
to,
been trying
go the
so
other way.
hard.
Yes.
And so he said, no, I don't hate him. And then we actually ended up having a conversation, the two of us, after this and saying, look, I actually don't hate you. I actually really like you.
Wow.
And now it had passed. I was past the year team. I didn't have to follow the rules anymore.
Okay.
And he said to me, get ready for this. He said, well, Beth, thank you so much for telling me that. But I am not one of those sad people that wants to get married.
Wow. Okay.
And I just want to let you know, you'll be so proud of me how secure I was.
Okay.
Because I was just like, wow, who's ever known a person to shut someone down like that? And so I was like, fine, I don't want to like someone that doesn't want to get married.
Yeah.
And so the next day, I spent the whole day praying and fasting, like repenting about this sense of like, I thought I was going to marry him,
Yes.
but also please take the feelings away. I was praying and fasting all day. And that night, the phone rang. And it was Matt. And he said, I've made a mistake.
Wow.
And I've realized I am one of those sad people that wants to get married and I want to marry you.
Oh,
so it was a
my
very fast
goodness.
track situation.
Wow. That's like whiplash. You're like,
That-
okay,
exactly.
wait a second.
It's very no flirting, no like small talk. Like we want to get married. No, So anyway, that's a little bit.
Okay, so from when that happened to when you got married, how long?
Well, that was actually quite a few years.
Okay, so
I made it sound like that was 5 minutes. That was quite a few years of like longing
Yeah.
and being super
I mean
quiet.
from whenever he said, actually, I do.
Oh no, it was 24 hours. Because
and then when did you get married?
So the next day I was praying and fasting all day. And then that night when he said it, and then I was like, I'm getting pizza because the fast is over.
It worked. That's right.
Yeah. So then we must have got married about 18 months after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that is amazing. That's so good. I do actually think the playing hard to get it's a good thing. I used to tell my girls that too. I was like, you know, guys they need to chase
100%.
a little bit.
I
They
tell
need to
Maisey
feel
that.
it.
I'm like,
Yes.
you do not need to put it all out there.
Yeah.
Like let people chase you. You're worth chasing.
That's right. And I'm not like one of these that's like super old fashioned, like, oh, the girl can't ask or the girl can't this. None of that. But I mean, just like it's healthy to make them like want you a little bit, you know?
Yeah, and it's not a tease. It's not a game.
No,
it's
it's
actually
just like
having
a
respect
security.
for yourself and saying,
Security.
I don't need to put a bikini picture of myself
Yes.
out there,
Mhm.
somebody to like me. You are worth
Yeah,
liking.
That's right.
It's who you are and you're worth chasing.
Yeah. Security and respect for yourself.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Okay. So y'all were young too, 19 and 20 when you first met. Willie and I were a little bit younger than that. We were like 4th grade whenever I first met
Whoa.
Willie. Yes, at summer camp. I've talked about summer camp because it's an important part of our life. Summer camp, I looked across and I thought he was so cute. He didn't have a beard yet. He just had these really cute dimples. And he asked me on the Moonlight Hike that year and we went and I remembered, I wrote it in my diary that I had met him that year.
Wow.
So definitely I think God's hand was like weaving our lives together even that young. And then he actually came to our church. He was going to like a little country church or whatever. And they started coming to, he and his brother Jace started coming to our church in middle school and they were in the youth group and the cute boys in the youth group. And so we kind of liked each other off and on in high school, but he dated one of my friends and I thought he treated her really bad. And so I was mad at him. So he asked me out and I said no, my junior year. And I was like, no. And I didn't even give him like, I'm washing my hair. It was just like, no, because I wanted to teach him a lesson because I thought he had treated my friend wrong. And so then the next year we actually saw each other at the mall. And I remember looking across the way and I thought, oh, shoot, I'm going to have to be the one that calls him because I had rejected him last time. So I actually made the phone call and was like, hey, I saw you. And yeah, we're single, whatever. And so we started dating really quickly after that and got married a year from that day. But it was one of those things we had known each other since 4th grade. So once we finally got together, we were like, okay, we know this is it. We knew. So we have a pretty fun love story. It's fun to kind of reminisce and go back and think about those early days.
Oh my goodness.
No, we did. We got married at 18 and 19. So we were babies and very immature. So our first year of marriage Willie says I try to forget that first year of marriage because we fought so much. Like I'm like, no, there were sweet moments of it too. Of course, obviously, we were young married. We were off in college together, our first apartment. I remember the first time we invited friends over to the house. So my mom, so looking at my mom and Miss Kay, Willie's mom, they were total opposites in that Miss Kay cooked every meal, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They lived down on the river, so she had to, and she loved to cook. My mom, had about 3 meals that she did cook in our lifetime. She just wasn't a cook. She cooked spaghetti and tacos and sloppy joes. That was our meals. Anyway, so I cooked spaghetti for some friends, and I had no idea how much spaghetti to cook. And we had this little teeny tiny apartment that the smoke alarm would go off when you would cook because it was right there, or when you would take a shower because the kitchen, it was right there. Everything was just super close. But we invited friends over. We both came from real hospitable homes, and so wanted to be that as a young married couple. And I made so much spaghetti, so many noodles, that it was when we got done eating, Willie threw a noodle at me, and it became this huge spaghetti fight in our first apartment. Yes. And when we moved, we had dried spaghetti behind the sofa, everything. But it was such a fun memory of those early days, just young and in love and fighting through things and working through it. And there were some fun times. But also sometimes I'll look back, I'm like, we were really immature. We didn't know what we were doing.
I know.
I know how difficult it can be to find wholesome, good quality content for your kids and for my grandkids. So I want to tell you about Minnow. I absolutely love Minnow, and it makes finding wholesome content for your kids and families easy. It's a great partner for parents and grandparents like me looking for ways to support and develop the faith of their little ones. Minnow is a streaming service for kids that offers faith-based content that grown-ups can trust. They've got lots of great shows like Life and Grow Bible, Young David, and 5-Minute Family Devotionals. It's a great way for parents and kids to draw closer together while drawing closer to Jesus. Minnow's shows and devotionals touch on a wide variety of topics that will keep the kids engaged while filling their minds with thoughtful, trustworthy, and character-building content. It's great for family movie nights, sick days, or when you just need some downtime because raising good kids can be exhausting, let's face it. I really love Minnow for our kids and grandkids. It's been so sweet to see them watch and learn things about the Bible and learn things about good character and good values through their shows on Minnow. So go visit gominnow.com today to start your free trial. Plus, you can use the code LOMAMA to get your first month for free. That's code LOMAMA at gominnow.com for 1 free month of the Minnow Kids streaming service. Sign up for Minnow Kids today.
And I remember some of the biggest fights that we had is me not understanding why he didn't want to do everything my way. I'm what is wrong with you? My way is obviously the best way.
Exactly.
And we had a huge fight about children because I was just like a baby magnet. I've always loved children, served in the nursery, looked after my friends, just loved children. And I remember Matt was like, I've made a decision. We're going to have 1 child after 10 years. And I remember just thinking, and just trying to break him down. We would fight about this all the time, but God's sense of humor, this was amazing. Not so I could get in my way, but in God's sovereignty, what was actually God's will. Matt's was more fear-based and mine was more impulsive, let's have 10 now. So we would fight about this. And anyway, there was this really wise woman in the church. She was in her 70s and Matt was her absolute favorite. So I was so concerned when I knew he was going to her for advice. I was like, she's going to definitely take his side. She adores this man. And he came home really forlorn. And he just said, well, Miss Mary said to me, if you think that woman is going to wait 10 years for 1 child, you're a fool. You need to start a family right now. And I was like, thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Miss Mary.
Thank you, Miss Mary. So God has a way of, just don't try and fight your way to what you want. Let go, and then God will intervene.
Let someone else speak into their life. There's sometimes that they have to hear it from someone else.
Yes. One of my favorite books that I've been reading actually about marriage, and this is one that I kind of get out every now and then, and it's a hard read, but it's a good read, is by Tim Keller. I really love Tim Keller. And he wrote a book with his wife called The Meaning of Marriage. And I love the little side note, it's facing the complexities of marriage with the wisdom of God.
Oh, that's
and this
good.
is such a good book. And you don't have to just be getting married to read it. You can be any stage of marriage, and you can be pre-marriage. I want to understand God's heart for marriage. This is a really solid book that Tim has written. And it basically sends this message, and it's not meant to be deflating, but it's that love is hard.
Yeah.
All relationships are hard, but love is hard. And actually, this is God's ideal. This is his original idea for marriage, came from God's heart. And so it's worth understanding and exploring and going through the broken parts to get to the redemptive parts, which I guess is in the title of today's podcast, The Pits and the Peaks. And I often worry about what messages we send about marriage because, we get so excited when a couple are dating, like, when are you going to get married? And, when they are getting married, you're like, tell me about the wedding and what are you doing? And it suddenly becomes about all the details and even weddings today. I mean, I was literally talking to my daughter about this week and getting married and like the ceremony, but also being a bridesmaid, like some of the costs involved, like you're signing up for like a $2,000 commitment. And I mean, all of the things. I don't know
how people do it now. Yeah. It has become this like huge thing where you have to like, go on a trip and then you have to like wear the outfits that match each day.
And like all the things that you have to buy. But actually, it's not that we're trying to say there isn't a time for feasting. There isn't a time for celebrating. You look at all the different cultures around the world. Marriage is worth celebrating and feasting. But if we hyper-focus and put all our energy into admin and planning and make the bar higher to even be at a wedding, and we don't put enough wisdom into understanding, let's look at God's heart for marriage and what is it going to cost you? Because ultimately, you're opening yourself up for a whole lot of dying to self, a whole lot of sacrifice. And if you are not mature enough to understand what you're saying, it's so easy for a relationship, even a friendship, to break down, but let alone a marriage. So is there more that we can be doing to prepare couples for marriage? Can we help people really take on the weight of those vows and almost have the fear of God as we say them, rather than like the excitement and the joy and the flutters, because the flutters, right, are going to fade.
Yeah, that's so good. I remember, so Willie and I did pre-marriage counseling and all of our kids did. I think pre-marriage counseling is so important. So if you are thinking about getting married, just make sure you get with some good, wise, older couple that can do some pre-marriage counseling for you and work through some things and just go through all the things that maybe you don't think about. Willie and I came from like very different households, very different families. That we had the root of faith, yes, but other than that, it was just all different, like just the way our households looked, the way they operated. My mom was like the class mom, at all the parties. Willie rode the school bus to school in kindergarten, from day one. Like his mom didn't even take him to school day one. I mean, they just had a different life and a different style of upbringing, and just the way we were raised was so different. I was raised with a brother and a sister, and we didn't fight, like physically fight. Of course we fought, like we argued, but we would never think to like punch each other. Like it wasn't part of our upbringing. He was raised with all boys, so they fought, like rolled, tumbled, fought, So just very different upbringings and lifestyles. So you're coming into this, you're becoming one with somebody who is very different than you. And it's not easy. It is a challenge. It is hard. And I think some of that pre-marriage counseling can help you. A couple of things. These are just small little things, but things that I remember specifically from pre-marriage counseling and I think really helped us through life. One, they told us early on is like, never say never or always. And it's so helpful when you get into a fight, because how easy is it to say like, you never do this,
right,
or you always do this. And it's really not true, because, no one never, like you never compliment me, or you never do whatever. And so if you can just like take that out of your vocabulary, it makes you stop and think a little bit. It's like, oh, actually, yeah, they do this sometimes, And so I think that one's really helpful in an argument, to just take out the words never and always. And another thing they told us was, you're not your spouse's mom, or you're not your spouse's dad.
You're not reparenting them.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. You're coming in, you're both adults, you both make decisions, And so I think I see that sometimes in young couples where they're like asking permission to do things. You're like, that they're not your mom, they're not your dad, like you get to make decisions on your own. You're an adult and you're coming to this as an adult. Another, I remember I was in a marriage class at one point, and the teacher, she talked about how you're not your husband's Holy Spirit. And I was like, ooh, that is really good, because we definitely, I know
100%.
I've
Yeah.
tried to be my husband's Holy Spirit at times and be like, oh, God told me that you need to do this or
That's
whatever.
right.
Where like, he's got the Spirit in him, trust in that,
Yes.
and let someone else, maybe
Mhm.
someone else could speak something, or
Yes.
trust God that he will move in his life and you don't have to be the one to try to do it.
Yeah, Matt
Because
says to me, "Are you life coaching me?" I'm like, "I am. That's right.
yeah,
That's
probably.
absolutely what I'm doing." And I'll stop. So yeah. And that's the thing. You sometimes can just get caught in pathways.
Uh-huh.
And I've found in life that the best moments, the peaks have been getting around healthy marriages, because they are out there. We can sit here and we can talk about the peaks, and then you can make it seem like marriage is a hard thing. It's all hard. It's
Right.
all difficult. It's all, but I'm telling you, it's such a beautiful picture of the gospel
Yeah.
marriage, and it's God's idea. So it's worth getting around people who are getting this right. And sometimes it's because they were fortunate enough to come from a healthy family where marriage maybe isn't a chance for them to learn some things from scratch from their other half that they didn't get taught themselves, but to get around some healthy couples, and also some couples that just see who you are, like when you are in your best place.
Yeah.
And you kind of rise to that. And that's been, when I think about some of our peaks, I think about trips we've gone on with some of our favorite couples, and we've sat there and we've laughed about the hard times, and we've learned wisdom from them, and we've asked questions like, okay, we're at this phase of life. What was that like for you? What was that like on your relationship?
That's
And
so
I
good.
think I love the wisdom of just getting away and making time for. Nothing thrives when it isn't nurtured.
Yeah.
There's no plant, there's nothing, there's no relationship, there's nothing that thrives when it's not nurtured and watered. And so having that discipline, and maybe you don't have like a built-in babysitter in family and stuff like that, but saying, well, look, can we make an investment in this area and find someone that we feel safe with leaving our kids with? Or maybe it's a date in the day when we know our kids are going to be at school, or some kind of moving around so that you are not starving the relationship essentially of oxygen, but you are making it a priority, that weekly date. And Matt and I ended up kind of changing something, because we did our weekly date, but then we realized that it was that moment to kind of catch up on family admin, because we'd have so many things like, did you book the holiday? Did you did? And so we would end up kind of almost like a management meeting. And so we decided we would have a date night, but then Wednesday night, we knew the kids are always out at Bible study on Wednesday night. So Wednesday night was admin night. And so we knew this is exactly the night for like getting business in order, because I think as well, if you operate in chaos and all of those things can end up putting strain on a relationship. So we'd have like marriage night and admin night, and we found like that helped to bring a little bit more calm in the storms.
I like that a lot. That's really good. We moms love seeing our kids grow up and chase their dreams. So when John Luke started his own coffee roasting business right here in West Monroe, I was thrilled. Kings Lane Coffee Roaster is the name he chose since it's roasted right here on Kings Lane at the Duck Commander Warehouse. Kings Lane Coffee is small batch, roasted with precision, passion, and quality in every cup. And it's even delivered right to your door. Kings Lane Coffee believes in sustainability and fair trade, so we only use beans sourced from reputable farms that prioritize quality and ethical practices. The house blend is a medium roast that's available in both espresso and drip roast. So no matter how you take it, we've got coffee for you. Taste the difference that local small batch roasting really does make. I love Kings Lane coffee. It's so good. It's really fun because it's roasted right here in our warehouse. So our warehouse smells like good coffee all the time. And John Luke's always here to make us a good cup. If you love coffee, you really need to try Kings Lane. So visit kingslanecoffeeroaster.com today for local small batch coffee delivered right to your door. And when you use the code MAMA at checkout, receive 10% off your order. That's kingslanecoffeeroaster.com, and be sure to use promo code MAMA, M-A-M-A, at checkout to receive 10% off your order. I was thinking about, those kind of daily, monthly things, but then there are times when there's like, a friend of mine said it to me. I remember Willie and I were going through a stressful time in our marriage, and she's like, if you were sick, like if you had like you broke an arm, like you would go to the emergency room and like you would stop everything that you're doing and go do that. And there are times in your marriage too where it's like those kind of we talk about like it's an emergency room appointment. Like it's not it's more than just like that maintenance, like, okay, I'm taking my vitamins, like I'm doing my date or I'm
Yes.
doing this or I'm going to the doctor because we have a little bit of a cold, but it's like, okay, we need to like go to the emergency room and we need to stop everything else that we're doing and we need to do what we need to do. We need to take the time to do what we need to do. And we've had a few of those moments in our life too where it's like, all right, we need to sign up for some marriage counseling because there's something that we need to have a little bit of an emergency time for, or we need to get away and we need to like have some time to really be able to talk about something that we're dealing with that's a struggle right now. So I think, yeah, it's that maintenance and then also that like, okay, we're going to go through and kind of push through this hard thing right now. And sometimes there's things that you can't resolve in that moment. You just have to wait. You got to wait on God. One thing my mom has, I'll never forget. She told me this at times. They had friends that whenever they were like good couple friends with, that there were times whenever they were like, oh, as soon as these kids get out of high school, we're getting a divorce. We're only staying in it for the kids, And then they made it through and now they're like the happiest married couple ever. So it's like it's sometimes if you just wait, you just kind of like sit in it and you stay in it long enough. I think whenever we hit like 25 years of marriage, a lot of people were asking me kind of that question, like, how do you make it to 25 years? And I thought a lot about it and I was like, I think you just don't quit. It's like, I don't really have specific advice except for like, just don't quit whenever there are times when you might feel like you want to, but just stay in it. And that doesn't look like you just have to stay and like be in a miserable marriage because I don't think that's the way that we're called to live either. That's not the life God wants for us. Right. But there is kind of this third option of like, all right, work towards it, work towards that and do the things that you need to do. And it might look different in different seasons of your marriage of what you're working towards, but also just say like, okay, I'm not quitting here. Like I'm still working in this and I'm still working on this and it looks different in different phases. But there's the book that I was thinking of whenever I knew we were going to talk about marriage is one that Francis and Lisa Chan wrote called Marriage in Light. It was called You and Me Forever. And the subtitle is Marriage in Light of Eternity. And it just like, whoa, it put things into perspective in a different way when I read that because it's like you mentioned, God talks about like Jesus is the bridegroom, the church is his bride, and the way he loves us and cares for us. And when we look at our marriage in light of eternity, rather than like what is happening right now that I'm aggravated about, that Willie is not doing for me, or is when we look at it in light of eternity, and I think about that scripture is like, focus on what is unseen because what is unseen is eternal. What is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. There's a quote, I looked it up but because I wanted to read this, but it says, marriage is one of the most humbling, sanctifying journeys you will ever be a part of. It forces us to wrestle with our selfishness and pride, but it also gives us a platform to display love and commitment. And I was like, ooh, that's so true. It's like, it's very, it's not easy to merge two lives into one. You have different perspectives, different thoughts, but I think that that sanctifying part of it to say like, God, like, what are you doing in me? One thing that I think has helped me as a wife is just the knowledge that like we can pray for wisdom because I remember going into conversations with Willie that I knew were going to be not going to be fun, and just being like, God, give me the words, give me the wisdom, help me to know when to say it, how to say it. And sometimes it still blew up because we're human and we're not going to be perfect and we're going to fight through things. But, just asking God for wisdom in the moment, asking him to guide you within your marriage and how to, navigate those pits and those peaks, I think is a gift to know that like, oh, okay, God's with me. He's on it. Spirit's in me, and he's going to be with me in these in these hard conversations.
Yeah, so good. I'm so glad you said that book. I have loved that book. I mean, we're straight up like them anyway. Like they're phenomenal. But that book is like a sharp talking to.
Yeah,
it's like that eternal perspective. They're not getting in the pit with you and like, but he said this and she did that. It's like this almighty zoom out that really is quite a wake up. And actually ended up watching the DVD series that goes along with that. And it's great. It's really good. They do such a good job together. I'm wondering what you've been listening to. I've been listening to song by Brooke Lidgetwood and Hillsong Worship called Fresh Wind. This is not a new song, but it's kind of come to mind because it reminds me about, when the Spirit of God is moving, he is making all things new. This is the God who specializes in bringing beauty from ashes and repairing broken walls, rebuilding broken places. And so I just think it's a song of worship about who God is and what the Spirit is doing, but it also reminds me, even in marriage, he is and he can and he will make all things new. So it's such a beautiful song to meditate on.
So good. I think we might have mentioned this one before, but build my life, just thinking about that declaration that I will build my life upon your love. I think it's such a good declaration for whenever you are going through difficult times, to just speak that over yourself. Okay, this is who I'm building my life on and how I'm building my life. So that's always a go-to for me.
Yeah, I love that. Well, as we wrap up, can we just say something about singleness?
Yes.
Because what I don't love is, sometimes if we're at a talk and it's about marriage or we're somewhere and they constantly hyper-focus on marriage as if it's the ultimate and the only. And then you have someone single who's saying, well, what was in that podcast episode for me? Well, there's great stuff because there's so much in life, in any relationship, about sacrifice, about surrender, but it's not the same as a marriage relationship. And maybe Maisey can even speak to this at the end about, she's still single, waiting for, who, what, when. But that, what can we be doing now when we're single? It's not a season of, I'm left on the shelf and I'm not quite living the ultimate full version of what could be. What does God have in singleness for women listening today?
That's so good. Yeah, I think that, and there are people that are single and have a desire to be married, and they're kind of, I know we get that sometimes, like, what should I be doing? How can I be preparing myself for marriage and for what God has for me? And there's people that are called to be single, and that's a part of God's word, and he addresses that in his word too, and that's a great calling as well. So it's not like this is the ultimate, marriage is the only way.
That's right.
But as far as singleness and who do you look for, we've talked about before about our daughters, and they went through, and sons too, watching them navigate dating and who they're with. And it's a little bit challenging to know when to keep your mouth closed and when to speak up and all of that. But I think, looking for someone who follows God ultimately, and even though, we can all follow God and still be flawed and have all kinds of issues, but looking for someone who follows God and loves God and seeks to put him first, and just that authority of our marriage is kind of under this authority. I think that makes all the difference. I honestly don't know how marriage works without God in it, because I with my nature, I'm too selfish and too whatever. I just don't think it would work. I know Willie and I, we wouldn't have made it if it wasn't for just kind of being up under that authority of God. So I would say first, that scripture about don't be yoked with unbelievers is, we look for someone who follows Jesus, loves him with all their heart. And that would be my first suggestion of who you're looking for and how you're kind of preparing your heart for marriage.
Yeah, I love that. That's such good advice.
We all know how important it is to have good skincare, to have an easy skincare routine, and to have something that's effective. That's why I love Nature Medic. Having healthy skin is a great confidence booster, but there's so many products out there that you can lose confidence because you don't even know which one to try or which one to trust. But I do trust Nature Medic. It's a natural formula that includes hyaluronic acid, vitamin C, peptides, glycolic acid, vitamin B5, and natural botanical extracts. It's a unique skincare formula that's gentle enough for teens, hydrating enough for adults, and restorative enough for mature moms. So everyone listening can use Nature Medic. It's free of of parabens, fragrances, and gluten, and every Nature product is dermatologist and allergy tested. Other leading serum formulas only have about 2% hyaluronic acid, but Nature has 35%. Hyaluronic acid is known to retain and attract many times its own weight in moisture. And with Nature healing hydration and rejuvenating antioxidants, your skin will look younger, firmer, and healthier in just 2 weeks. I have been using Nature for probably 10 years now, and my skin has never felt better. It's moisturizing, it's easy, it's simple, and also those pesky fine lines and wrinkles have diminished, I will say, when using Nature. So I love it. I recommend it to everybody. So visit naturemedic.com today. The first step I think you should start with is the starter kit. It comes with the cleanser, the serum, and the moisturizer. And when you use code MAMA at checkout, you'll save an additional 20% off your order. So get started using Nature and take care of your skin. All you have to do is visit naturemedic.com and enter code MAMA at checkout. MAMA. Take care of your skin today.
I didn't know if it was helpful to, start praying for my husband before I met him. I was like, is that living in like a fantasy realm? But it wasn't like I was picturing a certain person or like, this guy's got to have brown hair or But I remember from like the age of 11, like praying for my husband and feeling really burdened to like pray for him and also ask Jesus to prepare me for him and prepare him for me. And like that's something that I could do in the waiting. But we're speaking during this season about anxiety, and this can be an area of real anxiety if you're waiting. And I think it's really important to address that. And the scriptures command us not to worry. And maybe that's something you can even today is like bring to Christ and just be like, I've actually been worrying, like, God, have you forgotten me? Is this ever going to happen? Like, this is something real and practical that you can do today is like bring that to Jesus and actually say, I'm going to lay that worry at your feet and just say, I trust you. You know me. You made me. Your timing is perfect. And here's what's amazing. You never know what tomorrow might bring, and when you've met that person, there's no going backwards. There's only going forward. So just pray. You can wait patiently, wait well, but wait in security.
Yes. That's so good. And security that God has you and he's for you and he's gone before you.
Absolutely.
All right, let's close with our scripture. Matthew 5:14 is where we've just kind of wanted to point to you as we end each time because it's just an encouragement that you are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before men that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. All right, Sadie and Maisey, here we're back again. This episode was on pits and peaks of marriage. So you're kind of off the hook, Maisey, because you're not married. But I feel like there's something we need to hear from you on this. But Sadie, you have been married long enough. If you've been married a year or you've been married a month, you know that there are pits and peaks in marriage. And so what have you learned so far in that, Sadie?
Oof, that's good. I just had a whoa, that's good. I didn't even mean to do that. Ooh, that's good. Gosh, yeah, it's funny because Christian and I, we are really close. Like we're best friends. We really are. We do everything together and we just enjoy each other's company. And so I think the first year of our marriage, everyone prepares you for like how hard it's going to be. And I just remember kind of even being scared to step into marriage because excited, but a little scared because everyone's giving you advice and they're like, it's so hard, and you're like, oh gosh, okay, let me just buckle up, tighten the straps because you get a little nervous. And the first year we had was really good. It was it was just pretty good. I mean, we had our moments, Actually do have a little scar from I was grating cheese, making an omelet one night, and we got in just like a little argument and I accidentally grated my thumb. And like that was actually our first marriage argument, and I have a forever marking of it. And so, we had like our moments, but overall it was really good. And then we ended up having honey, and it was pretty good. Like things were just a little bit more smooth sailing for a little bit. And I think we were kind of like, when's something bad gonna happen, And then it did, Then we went through what I shared a little bit, a glimpse of with honey. And I would say that was that was like the hardest thing that we had gone through in our marriage for sure. And it was a long season of it being hard. And because it didn't really start there, that was just more of, I guess we hit the nerve. Like then all of a sudden, like the things that we didn't really realize were problems and we didn't really realize we had kind of let creep in, that were just kind of living in our mind, I guess, really hit the fan whenever that happened to Honey, because I think Christian and I, we're really different. Even though we're so close, we're really different. So we view things a little, like sometimes our reactions to things are different. And it didn't really seem like that big of a problem. I just be like, oh, okay, whatever. And then we both kind of had this thought about, it was like every time I did something as far as in ministry, like I would go speak somewhere, it felt like something bad happened to someone in our family or like something bad happened in our life. It would be like, I speak, someone gets sick. I speak, someone, like something would happen. And it normally felt like it happened to Honey. Like every time I speak, she would have a fever or something would happen to someone in the family. And so we kind of both have been building up this like, God, why, like, do you have our back? Like, it feels like every time we're doing this, like something bad happens to us. And are you gonna like protect us? Are you gonna have us in this? Because this feels like scary. And I was more just like kind of scared. Like my tendency was to go towards fear and like just get like anxious about it. And his was to get angry about it. So, and we never let either of those emotions get too big until what happened to Honey. And I went like super fearful and he went like super angry. And what I needed was really to be comforted, and he really wanted to be validated, and neither one of us could give each other what we felt like we needed, because in his anger he couldn't comfort me, and in my fear and also in his anger I didn't really want to validate him because I didn't think it was right or just at the time. And so we both were upset with God and we were upset with each other, and we weren't receiving comfort from the Lord or each other. So we were just kind of both broken. And that was really, really hard. And I think what it did was open up the door for it to just be hard for a little bit. It was like, well, now that we're here, let's just like have all the insecure conversations and anything that was there. And we hadn't faced that yet. We had really just had enjoyed each other and had fun and been our best friends and life together and the partners and all the tennis matches and basketball games, and we never lost a game. And that like, and then it was just like, it felt like losing games, like losing arguments, losing, it just wasn't good. And it took a while to like flush that out. And I think that, you always want like quick fixes and like a conversation to fix something. And I think you kind of wrestle with that verse, like, don't let the sun go down while you're angry. And I remember Peppa Shack telling me that when I was a kid, which is so weird. Like my great grandpa told me that verse before he passed away. It's always been like a conviction, like for me, like not to let the sun go down. And so I think one thing that I was kind of thinking about during that time is like, we would resolve maybe like we might not have resolved the issue, but we weren't angry towards each other. I tried to like work towards that, but still even that was hard in some sense. So we did counseling, but what was good for us too is we did it individually a lot too. Like Christian worked with our counselor, I worked with our counselor, and then we came together, which was really good because I think that there was just a lot in Christian's heart that was so good to work out with someone. There was a lot in my heart that was so good to work out with someone. And then, now I look at where we're at and now having 2 kids, and truly our marriage is like stronger than ever. I love him so much more than I did when we got married 4.5 years ago. It's crazy how much we've grown. We look back and you're like, oh my gosh, that is so crazy. Like we didn't even know how much we would love each other at this point and how much we know each other. And I thought I knew everything about you and you thought you knew everything about me, but little did we know, like you don't think you're holding it back. But those are the things that don't come out unless you kind of get pressed, And so I think like in the pressing, things came out that brought forth a vulnerability that we didn't even know how to share with each other, that over time and through help, we were able to love each other more through. And so it's kind of a lot. it's hard to wrap up a season like that or in a podcast form without oversharing. But I think that, it's kind of like, what's the song? New wine, and the crushing and the pressing.
Right.
You're making new wine.
Yeah.
And I just was thinking about a song as I was describing this story, because it was in that crushing and that pressing that there's this new wine that's so sweet in the season that we're in right now that we're enjoying. I don't think we would be able to had we not gone through what we went through and really gone as deep in it as we did. Like kind of needed to be like the crushing and the pressing. Like we didn't need to just get over what happened. We needed to like dive into the fullness of what all that was inside of us and flesh all that out. And now we're kind of in this new wine stage. But I'll tell you one funny story real quickly in the midst of it. I was just thinking how I like to be a fixer of problems. So I was kind of over it a little bit faster. Like I felt like I worked through it. Like I was with the Lord, worked through it. And I felt like Christian was lingering in it. And I was ready for him to get through it because I was like, I'm ready to not be sad anymore. Let's get through it. So I was like, how can I bring us together? I'm like, ooh, we should do communion. Like, I'm going to set up like a nice communion. And this is going to be so great because what better to bring us together than communion? And I don't know how from the breaking of the bread, I don't even think we took the bread yet. We got in probably the biggest argument of our entire marriage. And it's so funny looking back at it now because we're like, how do we get in that big of a fight right before communion? But I think about that verse where it's like, before you come before the Lord, like go make it right with a brother. It was almost like before we could even like come together, we had to like make it right and like be truthful and honest. We couldn't just like fake a communion scene. It was like, okay, if we're coming together under the blood of Christ, and like let's just get out a few more things and work through this. So that was definitely our hardest time thus far, but we're only 4.5 years in. We have a lifetime to go. We're gonna go through so many different things, peaks and pits, and but we've learned a lot thus far.
Yeah, that's so good. That was conviction of the Spirit to say like, nope, you can't even take communion until you resolve some of this.
I really tried.
But I think one of the things that I've seen in y'all that you've done so well, and I'm so proud of you for is at such a young age, is just like that willingness to like go to counseling, go get help, ask for help, like speak about the things that you're going through and be like, yeah, this is actually a hard time. And I'm going to go to somebody and like let them speak into me and let them and hear what they have to say about it. And I think that's such a gift when you can do that and not just hold it in, because that's one of the things that is, we want to do sometimes is be like, okay, just power through, but actually nothing's getting resolved. But if you can just go to somebody that you trust, or go to a counselor and say like, I do not have this figured out, then, let someone else speak into your life, and y'all do that so well. And you don't ignore the problems either. I think sometimes you can hear couples and they're like, oh, we never fight. And you're like, maybe there's some things you need to fight about, there's some things you need to address. So y'all face things head on. You go get the help when you need. And I think you're going to be healthier because of that. So I'm proud of you for that.
Thank you.
All right, Maisey, I'm not going to totally let you off the hook because I feel like we do have a lot of people that are listening. I hope that we have people that are listening that are in different seasons of their life, that are like preparing for marriage, or that, want to get married someday, or maybe you don't know if you will or whatever. So there's single people who listen. There's people who aren't moms yet that are listening, but that plan to be mom someday. And so what would you say about kind of pits and peaks of singleness? I mean, you're only 23, but you definitely are in that season. And I know with relationships and singleness, and how do you have anything you would like to share about that?
Sometimes I feel like 23 feels so much older, especially when you go into like a Christian college or something, or you've grown up in the church. It can sometimes feel like, right, I am only 23, right? What do I feel like I'm really behind, but I am only 23. I would say that my friends actually started to get engaged and married around even like 18, 19. And most of my closest friends had all got married. And I think for a long time, I pressed it down. I didn't think about it much. And I think more recently I realized, I definitely have believed that I am more far behind because I'm less than, or that they all have something about them that I don't yet have and I don't have, and that's why I'm far behind. But if I looked like this or if I did this, then I would be able to catch up. And I think that's such a lie from the enemy, such a lie. And even if I think about moments that I've had before, God's protected me so much, and I would so much rather wait and trust in his promise and enjoy being with him and knowing him than getting into a relationship because I think I should, and it being wrong and it not being right, and that being even more painful. And so I think I'm excited for there to be a moment in the church right now where the things that were uncomfortable to talk about or that were frightening to talk about aren't going to be anymore. And there's going to be a new narrative and a fresh wind come through the church in terms of the way we think and speak about singleness. That it isn't what we thought it was. And we're not going to use the same vocabulary. We're not going to talk about it the way we've been talking about it. We're not going to complain either. We're not going to complain, the dating scene is just so hard, or, the girls, I don't think there should be any more room for the girls saying the guys need to shape up and for the guys to say the girls need to shape up. I think we all need to look at ourselves and think, how have I been, Lord, how have I been deceived about the ways I've thought and even spoke to other people about my singleness? How have I been deceived? And what do you want to teach me?
It's great.
And so I look at my singleness now and I don't think, no, it's not because I'm not pretty enough, or it's not because I'm not good enough. It's because you're protecting me. And I find joy in being behind the veil right now. Not in terms of going down an aisle, but in terms being behind the veil in terms of being so protected by you and getting to know you, and the hiddenness. Actually, the hiddenness is not for shame, it's actually for intimacy with Jesus. And so I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful. And I'm sure there would be beautiful things if I was married now, but I am so grateful because I know there are things that have unfolded in my life might not have been possible if I was married. So
it's great.
I'm so grateful.
So good.
And I'm so grateful, and I actually just finished a job where I was doing caregiving, and this amazing lady I got to spend time with, and the thing we did every single day was when I went to her house, she would say, we're praying for your husband. We're praying for your husband every single day. And it actually became so joyful and so beautiful. And I didn't feel pressured. I felt there was so much joy in doing that. So
Awesome.
I think I'm really believing and praying for a fresh wind to come through every heart of everyone who is in a season of their singleness or who is walking in singleness. I think that season of singleness has been such a trigger word for so many people, but I believe it will be rewritten. I really believe it will.
Because a single woman is not less than.
Yeah.
They're not waiting to arrive. Like, oh, I'm sorry, you're in transition.
Yeah.
That is not how Jesus speaks to a single woman today.
Yeah.
And their life is
That's
full
good,
of so
Mum.
much purpose. It's not on pause. And so I just love that you didn't just talk us through your own journey in singleness, but also you validated a whole lot of people. It's not because they're not. It's because it's not yet time.
right.
And so we're all waiting for the promise in terms of waiting for Jesus' return, or some people are waiting for children, or some people are we're all waiting for something. And waiting for, someone that you're believing for, it doesn't make you less than or forgotten.
It's great.
That's so good. I was thinking as both of you were talking, because you said that new wine, you said fresh wind, and just thinking about the perspective shift. I mean, that's kind of like the not like biblical way to say it, but that is like it is. We all have these kind of perspectives or these expectations that we have to identify. Like, are these things of God, or are they of man? Are they something that I've put into my heart and mind? Whenever we can shift our perspective and our expectations to be ones that align with God and who God says that we are and what He has for us, everything can change in our life. And even if our circumstances still look the same, everything changes within your marriage or within your singleness or within your relationships with your family or whatever. So thank you for sharing that. That was so good.